Thank you, Mariah, for taking the time today to chat with me.
Absolutely.
During crisis, we always think, shelter in place, we sit around, we drink coffee and garden and paint walls and have just nothing to do. So thanks for squeezing me into your busy day, which of course is totally not true. We're both professionals and we're both, I think, busier than we've been in a long time, and everything has shifted. So I want to learn from you where you're at. What has this done to your work routine, and how have you adjusted to shelter in place?
Yeah, my role, I'll say, before quarantine was really focused on business development. And we agreed as a leadership team at Arrow that while growth of course can still occur, it wasn't going to be our main focus. It just didn't feel right to be, knocking on doors, making calls when businesses had so many other things that they needed to be thinking about. And so what we really said was we need to make sure we're providing whatever services, whatever new services our current clients need. And we made the decision to extend those services to organizations that weren't clients, that just colleagues that we knew or prospects that we had been talking to. For example, we do keep an employment law firm on retainer, and we set up a weekly webinar that's an hour long that was just going to be about COVID, so that they could go over, because COVID was changing things every day, and nobody wants to be a part of a daily webinar. That would just be too much to handle. But we felt weekly was important to say, here's what the state's mandating, here's what the federal government's mandating, here's what you need to do at these different client sizes to stay compliant, here's what's available to you in terms of resources, and have that outlet be consistent, so that instead of having to go retrieve this information from various areas, whether it be online, whether it be maybe their own compliance lawyer, whatever it might be, just to have it in one spot. For those that can't make it, we have a whole, we record all of our sessions, so we send them out to people that said, I didn't get to make it today, but I still want to get the recording. And just make sure that we're there for whatever people need, because we do sell health insurance, and right now we are in a crisis that has a lot to do with health. Yeah. And we wanted people to feel as safe and secure as they could. So that was our main focus, and that's really how I feel like my day-to-day has changed. I'm not making calls, I'm not talking to prospects as much in terms of, how can we work together in the future. It's, what do you need? How can I help? I just forget about the business right now. Where can I be of service?
Mariah, I value that so much, and it's so helpful to hear that local businesses pivoted in that way, because in this conversation, especially for those of us who are in sales, which if you're a small business owner, anything under 150 employees, I would say is small, manageable. Some element of your business is sales, that you as a professional are directly impacted by, whether sales is really your job title or not. So as a sales organization, to pivot from sales to service seems like such a big shift, but really it's not, because sales is all about service. So serving customers and serving your past clients and customers is such an important part of business right now, even if it doesn't seem like it has any kind of impact on immediate revenue growth. So I'm really loving that you're saying that.
Our organization is broken down. I would say 90% of our employees are only focused on service. And then there's the 10%, if that's focused on development. Right. And really what we did is we took that 10% and just put it over here and said, everything's going towards service. We're going to pick this up as much as we can. That's what needs to be done right now.
I love that. That's so encouraging to know. And you mentioned that word pivot, and you were also talking about pivoting in your role as a leader, that leadership is about constantly, continually being attentive to where pivot needs to happen, whether that's on a daily basis, or, you know, obviously right now in this time of crisis where your professional development department pivoted to service. Talk to me a little bit about that skill set. What does it take to be open to pivoting? Because I think a lot of people have a really hard time with that right now.
Yeah, I personally kind of live and die by checklists. And so I always have a checklist going for what I'm doing that day, or what I need to make sure is accomplished that week. Also who I need to check in with every day or every week or whatever it may be, to make sure they're getting what they need from me or from the organization. So it's always, I mean, as you know, I find it to be easy to sit down with a project and just say, I know what needs to get done. I know what it needs to look like. And it's going to take me, I don't know, an hour. Before the shelter in place, that hour could also mean that 5 different people walked into my office with questions, with issues, whatever it may be, that they can't continue doing their job if they don't get the answer. So I need to pause and turn, literally pivot, and get that answered.
Yeah.
So my hour project suddenly turns into this, and then a client calls and they need stuff. So I just think it's important to be able to compartmentalize things in your mind. And I do that by writing out lists so that you're still getting what you need done, because at the end of the day, it all needs to get done. You aren't letting it overwhelm you, which I think a lot of us, even I, on many days struggle with just being overwhelmed because I just can't get this thing done or whatever it may be. So just being able to have that mindset where you can shut off one part, open up another, okay, shut that down, go back here, and hopefully do it all in a positive manner, so that everybody feels good and like they're getting what they need, and you don't feel like you're not getting what you need done.
Yeah. You know what you're describing in terms of what I'm hearing you describe in terms of a skill set or and a practice is, I think a lot of times people get overwhelmed by their to-do list. And as you were talking, I'm looking down and I have this practice. I have a ta-da book and I fill it with it's a composition book, and every day gets a list. And I just, work off of it and I move things forward. And then we also have electronic project management tools and things, but just the satisfaction of scratching something off a list is a really fun feeling. But I think a lot of times people get really overwhelmed by the amount of things that they have to address. And in crisis, those things are very fluid. New things come in, and totally new circumstances are impacting what goes on our list. But what you said, and I don't want people to miss this, is the skill set of being able to turn something off, shut the door to it, open this other door, pivot, move toward that, open that door, address that, be done with it, shut that door, then move back to where you were or move on to something different, so that there isn't just a flood of things constantly coming at you, but you're deliberate in what it is you are addressing at any time, even if you have to, close this door to address this new thing over here.
I mean, I think women are in general great multitaskers, but I don't think multitasking in general means you can be doing so many things at once. You really, at the end of the day, can only do one thing at one time.
Yeah.
And ideally, if you can just get that one thing done and move on to the next, then even if you're not getting what you wanted done that day, you did go through and check off, a number of items. I had an employee last week, and she was messaging me because we have GChat with all of our employees, and she said, I feel like everything I'm touching is turning into a problem. Nothing's going the way it should. And she said, I'm on the verge of tears. I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. I have all these things that must get done, and I'm not doing anything well. And I told her, I said, I think you need to take tomorrow off. And she said, I can't take tomorrow off. I just told you I have all these things to do. This is the worst time to take it off. I said, no, I think you need to take tomorrow off because you are, as you said, on the verge of tears. You're not in a place mentally that you can accomplish what I know you can accomplish. And just having a mental health day, even though we're all in shelter in place, we're all at home anyway, but just turning off work, just relaxing, doing whatever you can do, going out for a walk and just having it all be done. I will cover her for the day for any, absolute immediate needs, and come back the next day and just start fresh and just start from the top of the list and take it one step at a time, because it's all any of us can do. And she did. And the Friday that she came back, she said, I got all these issues fixed. I got so much more done than I thought I could do. I mean, it's a mental game, I always feel.
Right.
And if we're not in the right mental space, then things can easily overwhelm. So not that, we can always take the day off and we can't always take that big of a step back, but I do think the mental health of, making sure we're focusing on our mental health while working, while in shelter in place, or even when we're back to work is so important, because your work will reflect it.
Absolutely. So again, there's so many things that you were mentioning. As a leader, you're really looking at the care of your team.
Always.
You are looking at the interactions that they're having with each other, with leadership, and the directive that leadership puts out, and then the client or customer that you're serving. So it's multifaceted. And with shelter in place, that team member now is impacting their family and who they're with. And so the impact that a leader has at this time is exponential. So being a leader who is aware of that and understands the importance of giving space for personal development, for mental health breaks, that's a really, really big plus. It's a key to keeping things moving. And quite honestly, it increases the image of the company and the health of the team, and probably has a better impact on the ROI anyway, because happy people do better work.
I hope so. I absolutely believe that. And I try, we're always great at giving advice and not always the best at taking it. I mean, I've had to, not only during shelter in place, but I'm also 9 months pregnant. And so my husband's had to step in a few times because we're both working from home and say, you need to go take a break. You look tired. I mean, I always feel tired right now.
Yeah.
But you need to go lie down. You need to take a break because, he can hear me from our separate room, and he can tell me I'm starting to not be in the best space anymore. And therefore I'm doing the best job I can do. And so, it's so important, and it's so easy to lose sight of, especially I think when we're isolated like this, because you don't have any way to reflect or talk with somebody, or even, our employees would always go on walks during their breaks and, talk about whatever it is that they talked about, but just getting out of the space for a minute and then coming back, I feel like is always a reset button. And I think that's harder with shelter in place. So it's a mental game.
You keep saying that it's a mental game, and I do actually think that's fun, and I think what I mean to say is that when people say mental game, it almost sounds like tricky, like there's some trickery involved with it. I don't know if that's what the connotation is, but what I hear from you, it's a game, like it's like a board game, and you engage in it, and you move the pieces around, and you respond in real time to what is needed. And so in that way, it can be fun. There's a lot of freedom. The load is off, the pressure's off. Of course, there's still performance indicators, there's still the goals and deadlines, and all of that is still true, and the pressure is there, but you play with it as you engage it, rather than trying to confront it. So
I do hope I'm always taking things in that positive, optimistic view. I think sometimes, as I said, it can get the better of me, it can get the better of anyone, but trying to be optimistic and just take those moments to reset is just, it's all any of us can do.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're 9 months pregnant. We weren't going to gloss over that. Oh, by the way, casually wanting to mention, I'm also 9 months pregnant. So yes, I think every woman who was, had to, has had to take care of family and friends and kids, and whether that's your own or, relatives, you're just sort of, what it's like to juggle those competing needs.
I don't yet. But I've been told to get ready. So this is our first, and we've watched nieces, we've watched nephews, and the beauty of that is always that you get to give them back after a weekend or whatever it means.
Yes.
So I'm excited and terrified about what's to come, and I know that that's going to be a whole new world and a whole new game, I guess, if you will.
A new game.
Yes, exactly. the play pieces are going to change, and I'm doing my best to prep for that. I'm still working full time, but I'm very much trying to make sure I'm ready to step out whenever this baby comes, and trying to be mentally open and prepared for not having any control anymore. That seems to be the recurring theme I hear from other moms.
Yes, it is. I mean, I'm not going to turn this into, let me give you my tips and tricks, because one of the things that I have learned as a mother of now an adult 20-year-old, which is just surreal. How surreal it feels surreal to become a mother. It felt surreal to me. It's like, what is happening? That's a little bit like what it feels like to me to have a nearly adult children, like a 20-year-old and a 15-year-old. I don't, what's my job? What do I do? How do I meet this? I know how to be with little kids. I don't know what to do with adults. Yeah. So, but yes, you are, you're probably not going to be in control. Let's be honest. That's probably not the thing. But you're talking about this, and the truly what comes to mind, and I know I keep coming back to this word of leadership. Good leaders are good at self-leadership. And I think that that's what parenting is like. And, maybe that's because I do a lot of leadership work where, I'm just limited in my context. But I always think if a mother and a parent, a caregiver can take care of themselves and can understand what their value is and why they're in this relationship, and it's all about that connection, that contribution, everything else just kind of will come, and it'll sort itself out. Every day is a new day, and no one knows what they're doing. That's probably the best for you to know.
Yeah, definitely. And I've met, just in the short time, I feel like I've been a part of Sonoma County Professional Women for maybe a year and a half now, and I've met just a few people that are new mothers or have much older children, and when they found out I was pregnant, like Gina Pearson and I have become very close. She texts me almost on a daily basis, just, hey, how are things going? Nicole Humber's given me some really great advice and just said,
yes,
don't worry about it, just go with it. And it is good to be in a setting with other professional women that are running companies or working for companies and just saying, you can do it all. Because everyone else in my company and on the leadership team are all men. And, we joke, but they're just like, well, yeah, our wives did it all, and that's fine, but that's just the reality that they lived in. It's not going to be the reality I live in.
Absolutely.
So it's always great to just have peers say, don't worry about it. Sometimes you're going to feel like you're failing here or here, and that's okay. And just keep going.
I love that you mentioned that, because that's one of my great loves of Sonoma County Professional Women. It's I work in a largely male dominated world. I'm a consultant, but my clients are all men, and it's not uncommon that I walk into a room full of men and I'm the only woman in there. And as an advisor and leading these people feels very intimidating sometimes. I had to like grow into that, into those roles. But to meet other professional women who are encountering that same space, and to see that, you know, they have bad days and they have great days and they have families and they have, you know, crisis, personal crisis, they're getting divorced, they're getting married, people are sick, people get healthy, all of life that I felt like I was so alone with, that really opened my mind, especially here locally. I think that that's so important to have those role models and that camaraderie.
Yeah. And it's not to say it's not just women. I mean, I know actually many stay-at-home dads, and
Yeah.
so I don't mean to put men in, you know, this box, but it just so happens that all of the men I work with happen to have stay-at-home wives. And my husband is very well aware that I will not be that.
Yeah.
I like work too much. So it's just good to have other perspectives and see how other people can balance that very large new part of what's going to be my life. So
yeah, I always like to I remind myself, and I always like to tell clients that the balance is achieved through movement and getting through things, right? So it's not about perfectly positioning everything, making sure everything is just right, and then it just stays that way. That is such an exhausting way of living, at least for me. Balance is just like, it's coming at you, you're going to get through it, you're going to move through it. You've got the resources, you've got the skills, you've got the strength, you know what you're doing. And if not, you could always ask for help. And that's why network is so important, whether that is at work, having that inner circle, that network and that team, or through Sonoma County Professional Women and other places. It's really super important to build that up. So we're glad to be a part of that. I'm curious, like, what do you think about the most at this time in terms of what excites you about the future? Obviously, you're having a baby soon, so that must be really exciting. But in general, what are you looking forward to in your future? What are you dreaming of and planning for that you're actively kind of aiming to get to?
I think that right now, on the professional side, our founding partners, you know, are definitely nearing retirement age. And so I'm incredibly excited. We have a new managing partner at our firm that we brought in from a sister company of ours. And he's, I think, going to be this beautiful bridge to the founding partners slowly retiring, the next gen of leadership coming in, and just kind of figuring out what this new era of Arrow benefits is going to look like. Because the healthcare world is changing so drastically. We've always been really good at being innovative, staying ahead of things. And that's just, if anything, becoming more and more important because, I mean, this crisis is a perfect example. My husband works for Kaiser, and I think last year in total, Kaiser Santa Rosa did 70,000 appointments by phone. And this year during SIP, they did more than that in a day. So just the world of healthcare is changing, how that's going to be communicated and implemented and how people are going to experience it is going to change. And I'm really excited to be a part of that change and help people understand the change and make sure people are still getting the most of what they need from their healthcare system. And also just living that through Arrow and kind of figuring out where we want to be in the next 5, 10, 20 years, because I'm absolutely in this for the long haul.
Right.
And then personally, just finding that balance of being a mom and trying to give my children the life that I was given. I grew up with what I consider to be a lot of privilege. My parents both worked, but always managed to make time for us. We traveled a lot. And I was never, I was always given support, always supported in school, and always expected, not necessarily to work, but there was always this expectation of either work or volunteering. So volunteering has been a big part of my life. I manage the outreach committee at Arrow. I still volunteer every weekend at Giant Steps Therapeutic Writing Center. That like feeds my soul. And just trying to figure out what that's going to look like in my next phase of life and how I can keep that intact and also pass that on to my next generation. So that's what I'm looking forward to most. There's a lot of change happening in the world and in my life personally right now. And I'm just trying to take everything one day at a time and embrace it all and live in the excitement and not let it turn to that overwhelmed feeling.
Right. You know, Mariah, I don't even know if you're noticing this or if this is just so intuitive for you or if it's a deliberate kind of decision you made. But as you were talking, you were describing many facets that make up your life, professional, personal, volunteering, and looking into the future and having such vision for what else is possible. I think that's, first of all, I admire that so much in other professionals and in women who are struggling or could potentially be struggling with so much coming at them, but they're moving through it. So that's just beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it gives me so much hope to know that there are such capable people leading in our community, because I never thought about how shelter in place impacts the healthcare in general. And I'm a fortunate recipient of teleconferencing healthcare because I had a massive allergic reaction and my doctor was on her personal cell phone and we FaceTimed and she gave me a diagnosis and it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing what we can do, so that you're at the forefront of that and are aware of that innovation and that integration that's happening. That's super inspiring. I mean, that's a superwoman status. I love it.
Well, I'm living it on the other side too, because I am pregnant. And so since SIP started, everything that would have been in person has now mostly been over the phone or via video. And I know some people are going to not be comfortable with that. There is this comfort level of seeing your doctor and have them, make sure everything's okay. But it is, I think, the world that we're going into, and I'm ready to help people embrace that, when it's needed, and hopefully make healthcare even stronger, because I think it's going to give everyone the opportunity to have more constant healthcare, because we're not going to be waiting for appointments the same way that we were and sitting in waiting rooms and all this. It can be faster. It can be better. We can nip things in the bud and keep people healthier. And I think it can be really great. And, with potential downfalls, but we'll focus on
that. Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's always, I'm sure this is not applicable to every single thing. And
of course,
this conversation is such a complex conversation, but on a professional, business level where lives are not at stake. But I mean, just personally, before this thing happened, you've seen those memes of like, I've sat in another meeting that could have been an email. Like, like we all know those meetings.
Yeah.
So with shelter in place, I'm so much busier now. And in part it's because I can have this conversation is probably one of the longer ones that I'm having today, because all of the business conversations that I'm having are much more condensed. What do you need? What are we having done? Let me know what check in with me again. So they're more frequent check-ins, but they're much shorter and it's much more efficient. So I can imagine that being a real good benefit for healthcare providers.
Yeah, and even internally at our organization, I think when we do eventually go back to work, because I don't think we'll become, I know some companies are already deciding that they're just going to become virtual, work from home companies, and that works for some people, and that's great. I don't think that Arrow will be taking that path, but our work from the office still may change. But one thing I do know is that the, quick question, I just need to run this bar, this, that, is, I think, largely going to go away. It's like, you need to come. You can set up a time to talk with me anytime, but let's set up a time and come with your list, and don't come drop by my office 10 times a day. And let's make this a really meaningful conversation where you get what you need. We can talk about it in depth, and then you go out and do what you need to do, and I'll do what I need to do. It is like that efficiency that I think can sometimes get lost in an office.
100%. Streamlining and getting through the distractions and the circumstances of every given day is, I think, one of the silver linings that we're learning here about work management, work ethic, and how to execute properly. I could talk with you for hours. This is so enlightening. I was joking with the board of directors, and I was telling them, I really love doing these conversations, and it's purely for I learned so much from professional women just talking to them, and it's so inspiring. I would much rather have this kind of a conversation or listen to these kinds of conversations than just having my podcasts on repeat, because it seems like soon, we'll be gathering together again, and then I'll be able to see you, and maybe in a year from now we'll be able to give each other a hug.
For now, you just know it's there. It's intended, even if we don't actually do it. Yeah.
Yes. But I'm so grateful and so glad that you took the time to chat.
Yeah, I appreciate this so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing the other members do their interviews. I think this is a great way to get to know each other.
Yeah.
While shelter in place is happening and moving forward. So
right. So you shared with me earlier, and it wasn't on tape, but you guys are waiting to find out what you're having, right?
Yes.
So I'm like just dying to know. Do you have a baby room set up, nursery set up?
Yes, we do.
What's the theme? Or a color?
Baby things? It's mostly gray and white, and then the accent colors like emerald green. There's emerald green rug and an emerald green ottoman to go with the rocking chair. And then just lots of patterns from all the clothes and the blankets that people have given or made. So we try to just keep it as neutral as possible. And if it's a girl, it will be Geneva Quinn Smith. My husband's last name is Smith. And if it's a boy, it will be Carter Jordan Smith. So we're ready either way.
You're ready. This is it. All that needs to happen is this little baby needs to be born into this world. It is such a beautiful thing to know that life is so persistently good and just perseveres. And then having a baby, even during these crazy times, I hope everyone will celebrate it with you and see the beauty and wonder that it really is, even if it's a dramatic pivot.
Yes. We weren't able to have a baby shower, and everybody's like, well, how are we going to meet babies? So I'm trying to think of fun ways to do that and make sure everybody feels included. So if anybody has any ideas, let me know, other than maybe doing just like a giant Zoom call. But yeah, we're excited. We're ready. I'm more than ready. I'm uncomfortable. I'm ready for the baby to come now.
Ready?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll be thinking of you, sending you lots of love. We are going to celebrate you as soon as we know. Going to make a big ruckus over this baby. Your names are beautiful. You're beautiful. You are a strong, capable woman. I cannot wait to, see you again in person. But I know that you're going to just rock this, and your team and we, as your Sonoma County Professional Women Network, are incredibly proud of you and just so glad to know you. So
thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks for putting this together, and I look forward to seeing everyone at the next luncheon in person, whenever that may be.
100%, with distance hugs.
Yeah.
It was great to see you, Mariah. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too, Bianca.
Bye-bye.
Bye.